Welcome everybody to another episode of 11 kilometers per second. I am your host, Mackins Audina, and 11 kilometers per second is the speed at which you must move in order to escape Earth's gravity. And that is a metaphor for you escaping the things that hold you back from soaring into outer space, from shooting for the moon and being amongst the stars. And by being amongst the stars, what we're talking about is reaching your potential, not necessarily becoming a celebrity. But this is a game and you decide the life that you want to live. We are literally in Sims, but the game is much more complex, and the game is made full of the things that hold you down, and you got to figure out how to get around that. And there are so many different things that objectives that we can be going out for. It's not just necessarily being wealthy. It's not just necessarily getting attention, which is what celebrity is, right? And attention is a proxy for feeling self-worth. Self-worth is a mechanism that is a feature that is put into the human form, into the animal form, in order to get us to move, but also, I think, to make the game fun. What are we worth? And so that manifests itself into fear of judgment from others, because if we're being judged negatively, then what is our self-worth? And then there is, our addiction to comfort, which is essentially our need to save energy, not expend enough any energy, not to get pain, because all of these things, they can lead to our death and the end of the game. And so we have to be mindful that while we are trying to stay alive as long as possible, we also have the opposite aim of trying to reach our potential. That is the thing that makes this spiritual. It's not just about living and surviving. It's about achieving your goals, self-actualization, and Maslow's hierarchy. So once you get your survival needs met, then you have to self-actualize. We all need that. This is a thing that keeps us moving. All right. I say that multiple times. You guys have heard it. It's getting a little easier to say. Any case, I have not been here the past week. So if you have been listening over the past couple of episodes, then I typically drop once a week, but a lot's been going on. My daughter just graduated high school last week. We were going through the celebration and had family over, and Saturday was crazy, and gotta find some sort of balance. Need to spend time with family, and it's always good. But one of the things that I wrestle with, not necessarily this, but trying to stay consistent. And I can tell you, with all of the focus on trying to get everything together, and then with the partying and the need to rest, that always kind of throws you off of your momentum. And so it's hard trying to get it back. But thankfully, I do have a core or anchor habit, and that is my workout. I'm glad part of what I do is I put it early in the morning so it can force me up. I never have to sit there and think, what am I going to do? It's compelling enough at this point for me to have to force myself up. And so I go and I do it. And, I'm glad that it's one of the things that I do, because ultimately, man, we are only getting older. I am turning 45 in about a month. And so, from my perspective, the average lifespan is about 89. Obviously, towards the end of that, you're less able to do things, but I'm going down fighting in every which way possible. That is, physically, I'm out here working out because I want to make sure that I am as able as I am as possible, as long as possible, to enjoy every piece of this life that I have, the privilege to live this life. I'm going to make sure that I enjoy it. I also know that, we are built in such a way that there's a balance. We're always trying to get balance. So you need the pain for the pleasure. If you want to experience the depth, if you want to experience the heights rather of pleasure, you also have to experience the depth of pain. This is, a theory. So that's part of the theories. It's so interesting too. The Greeks, had a lot of it's interesting how early on they started to think about these things. But this is what happens when you, again, have, your survival needs met. Then your mind can start working. And the truth is that we have not really, our needs as human beings have not changed over all of these years. We are human. The things that drive us remain the same: pain, pleasure, and all that good stuff. And so all it takes is to be able to sit down and think about it. And for the most part, that's what I do. I have the luxury, or the benefit of having others who have gone through it, and learning from that and from them. But they say also the Greeks learned from the Kemetic people, Kemet, ancient Egypt, black folks, and so they had it too. And so we don't know where they, the Kemetic people got their information, but we keep on building, we keep on forgetting, we keep on nothing really, like the nuances continue to multiply and change. And so as like even within myself, like there are lessons that I have to keep on learning. It's like, oh, this is it again. This is it manifested in a different way. And so it's it's what keeps the game fun and interesting, because as much of the knowledge that we do have, it's still possible to have it be slightly different. So many stories, for example, that we watch, is all about, love, unrequited love, and, desire and jealousy and all that stuff. It all remains the same, but it's slightly different. Slightly different in India, slightly different in China, slightly different in Alabama. You know what I'm saying? But the game is fun, man. I was out yesterday. My other daughter actually also graduated from 8th grade, and we went out to eat, and I was just sitting there watching the different people, looking at the buildings. Something that I'm able to do more and more now. I get into that space. And it's very, very important to get into the space of constantly seeing the world. Like every now and again, it's something that I make a habit of, trying to make a habit. But every now and again, you lose focus. You lose the understanding that this is a game, and you get caught up in life, and you start to dwell on what you want things to be, the way you wish things would be, and you just get caught up, and it's hard to get back. But once you get back, you understand that to enjoy this freaking thing. And in any case, I'm rambling as I typically do, and I hope that this ramble is sparking something in you. What I want to talk about though today, finally, is what I think separates those who become successful from those who do not. And I talk about what it takes for you to soar. And there's the two things I focus on, again, I've already talked about, is fear of judgment from others, and our which stems from our need to feel worthy, and then our natural inclination to avoid pain, avoid discomfort. And so what I think is the difference between those who seem to get away from that, like are able to overcome that, and those who don't, is their ability to deal with frustration, to tolerate frustration. Actually, it is a something that I started to think of, and coincidentally, like I was listening to Layla Hormozy, and she was saying something very similar. She's the one who phrased it like, the ability to tolerate frustration. And I didn't phrase it that way. I was just thinking about, the way that I was thinking about it is, what we do once we get frustrated, right? And that's what happens. Like we get frustrated, and there's a couple of things that we might, like what we want to do immediately is like to get rid of it, right? Like frustration, I want to get rid of it. Like, and frustration could also be, in the form of pain, right? Like discomfort. I'm frustrated. Okay, so I'm trying to do something, I can't seem to get it right. I'm messing it up. People are looking at me. I'm frustrated now. My God, I can't get it. Like typically that's the story we've told ourselves. Like, about our worthiness in essence, right? Everybody's like, am I dumb? Am I not good enough? Or, like we don't want to be in that position where it's like, oh my God, I can't get it right. We're thinking about some other stuff, about something that somebody thought about us, and, is it proven itself to be true? And we don't want to be in that situation. And so like that kind of discomfort, usually what happens is we'll go and find some distraction, right? Get on your phone. It's a big thing for me to get on my phone and start playing chess or Instagram or whatever the case may be, or I'll sit there and, start fantasizing about something that I want, something that I want somewhere in the future or whatever the case may be, and you're off somewhere, like not in the present tense. And like that's what, you do whenever you feel that, whenever you see yourself doing that, that there is something that you're trying to get a release. You're trying to get some relief from that discomfort, and that's what's happening. It's a good idea, and as I always say, it's always good to recognize what's happening, because you can be like, oh, okay, that's what it is, and get back. Whereas if you don't recognize what's happening, you just continue to do it. You have no idea that this is what's caused, like it's the discomfort that's causing that. And so you're like, okay, like you're not going to say, okay, what I need to do is get back to that discomfort until it's no longer uncomfortable for me, because I've grown accustomed to it. So that's exactly what you need to do. Once you recognize that, you go back to that discomfort. But it's, so that's one thing where the frustration can cause you to go and seek distraction. But it's also about how we respond, because ultimately, like, doing anything in this world is about organization. It's about people. It's about, two people. Obviously, like right now, for example, I literally put out my phone and I'm like recording. This is the beauty of technology. They're like, allowing for more and more people, more and more of us, of the ability for us not to necessarily need others to make things happen. But even then, right? Even in the future, like most of the time, like anything that you need to move is from communication. Like anything that's happened, wars, is from, propaganda. It's from getting other people to believe. It's from galvanizing a group of people to go in and build these buildings, like these little human beings building buildings and all that good stuff. None of that stuff happens without, like, even, the idea of getting the funding, the capital to get any of that stuff done is like from conversations. And so a lot of it is, the interpersonal skills, like, is so very important. In fact, this is something that comes to mind. One of the things that, I was thinking about too with respect to frustration is how, men and women deal with it differently, more and more. And I don't know if this is anecdotal, meaning I don't have any empirical studies, any real evidence about this, but I feel like, especially in the African American community, women are so much more articulate. And by articulate, I don't just mean like the ability to speak well, but like the ability to articulate their thoughts and feelings and emotions. And that is important because, because it's a way to address your frustrations, right? There was something that was happening. I was listening to my wife talk to one of her colleagues about a client that they both share. And the client seemed to be very upset. As a dude, he seemed to be very upset the way that they described it. I didn't get it from his side, so just hearing it, but it just brought up some memories from my frustration about stuff. Because ultimately, all the time, like I'm sitting here, and I said this in other episodes, like I'm sitting here talking, but ultimately, like I don't really talk that much. If you really know me and my wife and us, like she's the one she's a talker. I don't really talk. We talk to our kids. I'm not really the one that's doing the talking. Like I'm trying to get what I want with the least words possible. Like I really do not want. Like this morning, I was thinking about. I asked my daughter to come with me to drive to go drop off the lawnmower so it can get fixed. And, I just say, hey, I need you to go with me somewhere. And she has no idea where we're going. It's like, oh, you want me to follow you? Because I needed to like split off. I didn't want to drop off the lawnmower and then drive back. I need to split off and go get my tires fixed. And so I needed to And it was a time crunch. Like I need to get there at a certain specific time. So I didn't want to have to, I wanted to ultimately I wanted to have two cars and not be stuck. So I was just thinking about how I didn't give her any like communication. I didn't say what was going on and all this other stuff. And I was thinking about how, that's how that typically happens in the movies that I remember, like the like mob movies where they'd be like, yeah, let's go for a ride. You know what I'm saying? And you have no idea where you're going. If you're in some kind of a danger, maybe this is your last move, like they're coming to whack you at this point. And you're like, I guess I have no authority. I gotta go see what the fuck, what the hell is going to happen. I was thinking about that's how we expect for leadership to be, what authority ultimately to be. Like we are just going to tell you and you're going to move, and that's neither modern. And I don't know how much of that was the case before. Clearly, in the military, that's how it works, right? There's a hierarchy, and you just do what you're told. But like leadership, not just authorities, works a little bit differently, right? In leadership, people are following you, right? They are following you because they want to, because you sold them on a dream, you sold them on a vision, and that vision may just be me. Like, I want to help this person. Like, I like what he's about, or it could be something else. Like, but you sold them on a vision, so they are following you. Authority is when they are following you, but because they're being forced to, not because of they're sold on your vision. That's not because they're willing to, not because they want to. They are forced to, like physically forced to. The kind of thing where, my daughter has no say. She has to do what I say type of thing. That's authority. But I could have also been like, hey, and, sometimes I'm like, hey, this is what we're trying to do. We rally as a family. This is what we're trying to do. Here's the reason why. And now people want to. When they want to, they give you their best effort. If I'm being forced to, I'm just going to show up and freaking do it. Like, okay, do what's minimally required of me. I'm not going to go above and beyond. And I mean, if you have authority, you can be like, okay, here's the standard, and like force people to do it. Nazi style type shit. But, but it's never above and beyond whatever standard you came up with. It's not going to be creative. It's whatever it is that you were thinking should happen, right? This is the standard I came up with. Nobody's going to be like, oh shoot, I just thought about something that's unique, that is not even what you told me to do, but it's going to double what you just did right there. Nobody's coming up with that. That's the difference between leadership and authority. This is a bit of a tangent, but I think it's important. In any case, the reason I got there is because I wanted to talk about how, the difference between like communication and, like, I think, for men, like when we get frustrated, it's like, I don't want to freaking talk to you. Cause like a lot of times we're not quite sure exactly. Like if we're feeling, I don't want to say emasculated, but and because it's a feeling that both men and women get. But I feel like, again, with a theory that I have, because this is about black men, like we aren't supposed to fail and all that good stuff. Like a lot of times, as a black man, when we feel like, oh my God, here is me failing again. This is not acceptable. This is not something that I could do. Again, failure is necessary for success. But like once that happens, it's like the frustration is like, I don't want this to be happening. That kind of, discomfort. I don't want this to be happening. And now you're reminding me that it's happening, when you're maybe potentially saying, hey, here's the things that are happening that did not happen, or here's the things that did not happen that should have, or here's the things that's happening that should not be happening. Okay, that means I failed. Here's the things that did not happen that should have been happening. That means I failed. And now you're dealing with this feeling in the back of your mind of that, oh my God, I'm not worthy, which is making you feel like a failure, which is also making you feel frustrated. And you're not quite sure exactly how to address it. And so a lot of times it's like, anger and resistance and shutting down and all that other stuff. And this is, these are some of the mechanisms that we use when we're getting frustrated. And that does not help in terms of our ability or our need to have the ability to communicate with one another such that we get things accomplished, because that's what gets things accomplished. It's people talking. It's the organization. And so that's why a big piece of this is the emotional piece. A big piece of it is the emotional piece, because getting shit done means you have to be able to get through to other people. You have to be able to get them to work in concert with one another, to move in a particular direction. And if you are necessarily going to deal with people that's going to frustrate you, if you're not able to get around that, to respond in a way that's productive as opposed to destructive, then you're not going to necessarily get anywhere. You're going to, withdraw, shut down, maybe go and find some comfort, as opposed to, trying to figure out how would I be, or how would I behave if I were not frustrated, right? What would be the steps that I took if I were not frustrated? And so, frustration. So the ability to feel that frustration and say to yourself, if I were feeling at my best right now, how would I behave, right? How would I behave if I were feeling at my best? And so, frustration comes in when you have an expectation, right? This is how this should be easy. I should be able to do this. I should, whatever. I mean, let's just say the graduation. So, we have a dog, and the dog was gotten at the time when we got the dog. I was like, the kids wanted a dog, and I was like, bro, like everybody has always said, you get a dog, the father ends up being the one to take care of him because the kids don't do anything. So I remember at the time, I was like, yo, y'all get a dog, make sure you understand I'm not going to do a single thing. Like, seriously, I'm putting it out there for you to understand. Here's what I'm saying. I was trying to be very clear about it. And so the kids and my wife, they all got together, got this dog, and now what I'm seeing, because, I'm a compassionate person, is that they're not freaking taking care of the dog. And I'm going out of my way trying not to take care of the dog. And I'm like, in a way that, they should. Obviously, we're not like, abusing the dog, but whatever. I'm like, there's some things that should be done that is not being done. And it's causing some level of resentment from me. And so I remember, dog, like we had been going all day running from one thing to another. This was Friday, one thing to another, work, networking, all that other stuff. And then we had to go off now to my youngest daughter's graduation and cookout type stuff. And I'm like, all right, ain't nobody going to ask about this, even though this dog's been inside all day. So, okay, I'm going to ask. Is anybody going to, like, oh no, I asked, can Journey come in? Because that's one of the issues, right? Like, you can't take a dog everywhere. So, like, can we take the dog? This is outdoors. Okay, so the response was, it's outdoors. All right, I'm putting it out there because I'm like, okay, you guys are the ones who want this dog. Like, I'm letting you know that you should be thinking about this dog that's been in the house all day. And so it's me and my wife, and that doesn't, like, goes right over her head, right? This is not something that she should be thinking about. So at the time of leaving out, I'm like, all right, so are we bringing Journey? Yeah, whatever. So I walk out because I don't want to be the one who goes and does it, because I'm pretty sure that her mind is like, all right, yeah, go. What? Yes, make the thing happen. Make it happen. But I've already said this is not my responsibility. So I go out specifically because I'm trying not to, I'm trying to make it known that I'm not. She comes out and she's like, oh, I didn't know you had gone outside. Are you waiting for me outside? Yep. And then, she comes out, dog in tow, letting the dog come to the door. No harness and leash. Like, okay, is there a harness and leash, or are we just going to leave this dog in the car? So, lo and behold, I'm like, and she's like, no, I mean, what? So, any case, she does not go and get the freaking leash. We drive off, and now she's like trying to figure out exactly how this dog is going to come in, and she's asking for my help. And we had like this makeshift leash that was kind of like a choking type of thing, and it's like I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated because I'm like, you know, I've like from time indefinite, because none of this is occurring to anybody's mind that this is still something I'm harboring. But because it's like this, it's gone for you because it's not something you're thinking about, but it's still there for me. And now my expectation is that you're going to actually do something. And so that caused my frustration because I have an expectation that this is going to happen. And this is what causes expectation, you know? So I mean, this is just an example of it. But if you look at all the times, or if you start to look at all the times that you feel frustrated, it's usually based on some kind of expectation that you have. And the truth is that, you know, no one, there's no, or everything is everything, like they say, in Rastafarian religion, or wherever the hell they do say it. Everything is everything, which ultimately boils down to, like, there is no truth, universal truth. Everybody's version of it is true. That's how I take it. That's how I take it. That's probably not how it's actually meant, but that's how I take it. That's how I'm using it right now. Everything is everything. There is no truth. And a lot of times we come in thinking the way that I have logically come up with something is the truth. And even when you're right, like literally, like when you're right, like there is no real truth. So let's play this clip and I'm going to show you what I mean by this.
Need tickets? Got tickets? 7th row. What is it?
Balcony.
B, you got balcony seats?
That's cool, my man.
Damn, B, your lady is too fine to be getting a nosebleed.
Yo, my man. My man.
7th row, 50th.
Hot now.
What do you think?
What do you mean what I think?
7th row. Come on, baby, it's my birthday. Claudette gave me money.
Do what you want to do.
$50 a pop. Smart man, B.
What the hell is your problem?
Nothing's good enough for you, is it? Huh? Why you gotta go shit on my tickets?
One night. One night in fucking months. My birthday. I want to go out. Be spoiled a little.
Oh, be spoiled. So because I can't buy you front row seats, you gotta punk me out in public?
No
In front
one,
of that motherfucker?
No one told your ass to drink on the job.
You know what? Fuck you. Fuck your birthday.
All right. So we just saw that clip, right? So what are your thoughts? Is the guy right? Is the girl right? And so here's my thing. Neither of them are right. Everybody in the relationship, what it is that everybody's got to be mindful of where they want to grow and what they're responsible for. And that's it. You know, the guy, I don't know enough about, I haven't seen this movie, so I don't know enough about the whole entire thing and what's happened. It seems like there's some stuff having to do with him losing a job, having to do with drinking on the job. So, you know, maybe had I read it, like my feelings would be more towards her, because, you know, why the heck are you drinking on jobs? I don't know. But what I do know is that from the male's perspective, you know, you're feeling emasculated, right? You don't have enough money to get this ticket for your wife, although, you know, this is what you would have done if you wanted to. So now you're frustrated by that and you're angry and you're going to respond in that way. Ultimately, though, if you had the money, you wouldn't even have to deal with this issue. And so how would you act? Or if you were comfortable, right, in the position of not being the person who is the breadwinner, if you're like, listen, I'm here, I'm pimping, you know what I'm saying? I'm here to get this money. You would not be all frustrated about it. So ultimately, it boils down to your expectation of how you should be behaving. But the truth is that, you know, responding that way does not solve the ultimate problem that's causing you to feel a sense of a lack of worth. You got to figure out how to get your job and get your money up. Nothing else actually solves the issue. And so you can be like, listen, it's your birthday. I'm going to be happy for you right now. Let me go and figure out how to solve this so I'm not in a position anymore. And from the woman's perspective, bro, like, yes, it is your birthday and all that good stuff, but ultimately, like, would the difference in seat like be so much greater that you need to chip away at your man's ego and self-esteem as opposed to trying to build him up? You know what I'm saying? As opposed to having a relationship where, you know, you can build him and grow him and get him to the point where he can do way more than that. Like, what does it actually take for him to get better? You know, is that much necessary for you to do that? From my perspective, you know, the woman could have been like, listen, I'm here for my guy. And that's a dope thing too. You know, you can be selfless. And I think that's the thing to do. But everybody's got to figure out how to focus on their own individual growth and ideal self. You know, so that you know, and this is another example from my personal life too, about how, you know, it's also about just like approach, you know, like, even when you're right, it's about approach. Like, you could always do something differently. And it's usually because we do not have access to each other's thoughts and what is causing one person to think. And if you've ever had an argument where you felt so right, and then you sat there, you argue, you're in a better position, and because usually the way you get in that better position is because you are owning up to your own shit. Like, I'm not trying to get you to see that you're wrong anymore, right? Because that's what it is. I need you to acknowledge you're wrong. Like, you need that acknowledgement from the other person. Now, I'm not trying to get you to acknowledge that you're wrong anymore. What I'm doing is thinking about how it could have been better. And I'm going to tell you about the ways that I could have been better. When you get in that position, the other person does that same thing because you've disarmed them. Then that's when you can get to the point of understanding, oh, this is where you were coming from. And 9 times out of 10, you know, if that person is not out to try to get you, you know, hopefully you're not in a relationship where somebody's trying to get you. But if that person is not out to try to get you, you're inevitably going to come up to the point of understanding where they came from and how it's like, oh, okay, so you were thinking this way and I was thinking that way. You know, so, you know, I could get into an example, but I think it's clear enough. And so I'm saying this to make you understand that the idea of expectations, here's what is like, because I'm right, that this is how it should happen. And so I have an expectation. And when that expectation is not being met, then now I get frustrated, is where you are off. So when you start to feel any sort of frustration, you know, you got to be like, there is an expectation here that I have that is not necessarily the truth. And so what am I going to do? I'm going to behave in the ideal way until I know precisely what it is that I need to say to get to the ideal place. The ideal place being the most productive place, the place where I want to go, collectively or, you know, individually, whatever the case may be. So said another way, let's say the frustration is, you're stepping on my foot. Dude, you're stepping on my foot. And you're like, man, this dude's stepping on my foot, doesn't give a damn. What you could say is, you know, hey, you mind not stepping on my foot, right? Or in the case of Journey in this whole trip where it's like, okay, where's the harness? I gotta be like, Bo, I need you to get the harness because this is what I'm feeling and whatever. And maybe she'd have some other thoughts and maybe we go through it and whatever the case may be. But I could express exactly what it is that my issue is. And then we could talk about that issue and then the idea would be to go and have a good time celebrating our daughter, because that's the ultimate goal, as opposed to being frustrated and whatever the case may be. That's the ideal place I want to get to. I want to get to the place of not necessarily being frustrated. And I can tell you precisely what it is that's causing. And if you can't articulate enough what's causing the frustration, and sometimes you'll articulate it Just to be clear, you articulate whatever feeling, whatever it is that you're feeling, and that other person will be like, but, here is my version of this and blah, blah, blah. And you won't necessarily win it out. But ultimately understand the ideal way to behave is always the person who's not perturbed, right? Like when you are the stronger person, you're not going to be perturbed by it, like, because you can weather any storm. You're the one who's in control. You're the one who's going to make sure that we get to the place that we're trying to get to, which is 9 times out of 10 harmony, or 10 times out of 10 is harmony. I don't know when you want to get to a place where it's disharmony. So it's like, okay, if I'm the strong person getting us to harmony, then how do I maneuver? How do I, move things around, so that I make sure that we get to that place? Because that's my responsibility. And so, always acting in the ideal strong state, is what you want to get to. That is not something that's something that's definitely easier said than done. But ultimately, like, believe it to be true as much as you are not feeling like doing it. Because ultimately we are addicted to the chemicals that get released when we get frustrated. I've noticed that myself too. Like when you get angry, like, your body releases, I think it's epinephrine, and I forget the other thing, adrenaline. That's why you got adrenaline addicts. Those chemicals that get released in your body, they are addictive. And so when you're feeling that level of frustration, like, I felt myself frustrated, like, well after I've intellectualized that I shouldn't be frustrated anymore on that same thing. I was like, oh, but it was still lingering. It's like it just lingered because my body was like, you gonna give me this? Like, we got here. Like, I'm starting to feel a little bit of it. You gonna give it to me, so I feel that little chemical that's there. And so, you got to get out of that addiction. Your mind's going to tell you here, this is the ideal state, but then your feelings, that chemical is just, your body's going to ask for that chemical, and as a result of that frustrated feeling, your mind is going to want to tell you some stories to get you there. Your body is there, so your mind is like, okay, this is I'm feeling it, so this must be true. Let me continue to tell myself this story so I can release more of these chemicals in my body. That's ultimately what's happening, and you need to be aware of that, because once it's happening, you need to be like, all right, well, I'm still going to act in a way that's ideal, despite the fact that my mind and body are lying to me. And I'm going to do that long enough such that that's no longer an addiction of mine. Now I act in a way that's ideal automatically, and I am my ideal self, the person who's in control, the person who behaves in a way that is always like, here's the best thing to do. Here's, go take a left, take a right. Here it is. Oh, this thing is in my way. That's all right. You know what? I can handle that. I'm just going to, just the James Bond MacGyver of all types of shit that happens. And that takes the practice. And that's where you got to get to, knowing that the frustration is going to come in. How do I respond when frustrations happen? Get to the habit of being able to tolerate frustration, deal with frustration, and respond in an ideal manner rather than shutting down, being distracted, seeking comfort, and, getting angry. All of those things that you do in order to automatically combat that frustration. Instead, behave in the way that you are in control, that you've decided to, until you no longer even have to decide to. That's the promised land. When you can behave in an ideal way without having to think about it, that's the idea. That's the promised land. That's what we're trying. Like, we're going to be here trying to reprogram ourselves from our biological programming. It can be done. You're going to reprogram yourself to ideal state. When you do that, you're going to more likely be able to succeed. All right, that's my episode for today. Thank you for your time. Have a good one.